Biochemistry, Introduction. First of all, in these lectures try not to memorize the things, instead try to understand and pick the concepts that are explained. So let's get started. Biochemistry is a fascinating subject that explains how all life on Earth functions. Biochemistry combines biology, the science of life, and chemistry, the science of molecules. Biochemistry, then, is the molecular basis of life. Every single thing that makes people alive is due to biological molecules and their interactions. The subjects of chemistry and biology have been around since the time of the ancient Greeks and Egyptians. For the first time, the relation and similarities of the living organism and the environment was noticed 200 years ago, when Friedrich Wöhler accidentally created urea compound, which appeared identical to a crystal, when he dried urine. Prior to Wöhler's time, it was believed that the substances in living cells and organisms were somehow qualitatively different from those in non-living matter, and did not behave according to the known laws of physics and chemistry. As Wöhler phrased it in a letter to a colleague, "I must tell you that, I can prepare urea without requiring a kidney or an animal, either man or dog." This was a shocking statement in its time, for it breached the presumed barrier between the living and non-living. The famous physicist, Erwin Schrödinger, wrote a seminal book for lay readers entitled, What is Life? And Watson and Crick, in 1953 pointed to Schrödinger's book as inspiration for their search to find the structure of DNA, the heritable material. It took a long time to realize that cells had ability to store information, read that information and then reproduce that information. But the idea of combining these, and using the word biochemistry, was barely used 100 years ago, thus making this a young science with only 100 years old. Classical biochemistry had been concerned with enzymes and other molecular reactions in living organism. Now a new field derived from biochemistry called molecular biology has come into being, which is concerned with cell activities. The molecules of biochemistry are overwhelmingly built using primarily just 6 bonding elements: carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen, with supporting help from sulfur and phosphorus. The element whose atoms are arguably the most important for life is carbon. Besides carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, the fourth most abundant element in our bodies, and the most abundant in our atmosphere, is nitrogen. The element that is important in building blocks of life, biomolecules, is phosphorus. These elements are joined together with the help of electrons. Atoms tend to arrange themselves in the most stable patterns possible, which means that they have a tendency to complete or fill their outermost electron orbits. They join with other atoms to do just that. The force that holds atoms together in collections known as molecules is referred to as a chemical bond. There are 2 main types and some secondary types of chemical bonds. Ionic bonding involves a transfer of an electron, so one atom gains an electron while one atom loses an electron. The most common bond in organic molecules, a covalent bond, involves the sharing of electrons between 2 atoms. Hydrogen bonding is a weaker form of chemical bonding. It is a type of polar covalent bonding between oxygen and hydrogen wherein the hydrogen develops a partial positive charge. A metallic bond is a force that holds atoms together in a metallic substance. Such solid consists of tightly packed atoms, where the outermost electron shell of each metal atom overlaps with a large number of neighboring atoms. Mainly the cell chemical composition involve electron sharing, and it is these covalent bonds that stick us together. Biochemistry is all about large carbon-centered molecules and their relationships to the water of the cell. Carbon has 4 electrons involved in reactions, and they all participate in sharing with other atoms. Carbon's ability to make 4 bonds also makes it central to the construction of large and complicated molecules. Organic compounds are a bunch of carbon's compounds that are covalently linked to atoms of other elements. In living things, the main organic compounds are carbohydrates, proteins, fatty acid and nucleotides. These compounds have been hydrated with water molecule. Nitrogen can make 3 bonds with its electrons. When nitrogen bonds to hydrogen, it forms an amine, which is related to ammonia. Amines also give their name to amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, the stars of biochemistry. In cells, phosphorus is pretty much only seen when bound to 4 oxygen atoms to create a unit known as a phosphate. Phosphates are important for storing energy and for being on-off switches for proteins. Phosphates are also part of the backbone of the structure of DNA. Other elements that are not primary elements, the building blocks, but they perform critical tasks in and around the cells, are the 8 minerals including sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, iron, zinc, copper and chloride. In watery surrounding, many of these minerals lose or gain electron, resulting in positive or negative charge, and such atoms with charges positive, negative, are called as ions. The process of making an ion is called ionization, and these ions are very important to cells. Proteins are polymers, made of many monomers, single unit, called amino acids. Many proteins are quite large, often with more than 1,000 amino acids in a single protein molecule. A huge family of proteins that is responsible for speeding up all sorts of reactions is called enzymes. Non-protein molecules that speed up reactions are called catalysts. Enzymes have highly specific shapes, and those characteristic shapes only allow molecules with corresponding shapes to fit into them. If a molecule can't fit into an enzyme, its reaction will merely grind along at the speed of non-life. Because each enzyme catalyzes reactions quite specifically, on only one or a handful of different molecules. Thus, any given cell must make thousands of enzymes to catalyze the thousands of different types of molecules made in that one cell. Overall, you could think of cells as houses for molecular reactions. Complex cells are called eukaryotes, and then there are the simple design, small size and low catalytic enzymes containing cells, called prokaryotes. Prokaryotes involves bacteria and archaea group of organism, while eukaryote cells involves all others living organism including protista, single-cell eukaryotes, fungi, plants and animal cells. Inside the cells there are many compartments called organelles. Each of these organelles play specific roles for keeping the cell active and alive. One of the remarkable things about the biochemistry of cells is this: all living things are remarkably similar. The molecules they contain, the reactions their molecules undergo, and the ways they store information inside themselves are similar. Whether it's the breakdown and synthesis of fat, the storing of chemical energy, or the synthesis of proteins, all cells take the same basic approach. These similarities among cells have made it possible for understanding and use of bacteria, yeast and animals as biological factories to make human proteins, such as insulin for medicinal use.